What's next for Israel after its fiasco with Iran and its military offensive in Gaza? I mean, it's not wildly out of character for Iran and Israel to lock horns, but Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel has rekindled the flames, and Tel Aviv has been raring to go. In fact, just days after Hamas's attacks on October 11th, Israel was on the verge of conducting a preventative attack on Iranian-backed Hezbollah fighters through Lebanon's southern border for a multi-pronged assault. The US pushed back hard out of fears of a wider regional war erupting, and Israel refrained. Months later, the situation is no further away from regional war than it was in October. In fact, it has been unraveling much like a slow-moving car crash, involving Houthi attacks on European and Israeli vessels in the Red Sea, cross-border exchanges of fire along the Israeli-Lebanese border, and an Israeli strike inside Iran's diplomatic compound in Syria. That attack killed 7 high-ranking Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps officers. Iran retaliated with an unprecedented direct strike at Israel, employing kamikaze drones and missiles, most of which were shot down. Iran only avoided immediate retaliation from Israel because US President Joe Biden called Netanyahu and reportedly persuaded him to stand down. Israel then responded with a limited strike on Isfahan that Iran said it will not respond to. So why are Israel and Iran at loggerheads? They have been mortal enemies ever since the inception of the Islamic Republic in 1979, really. Their mutual dislike of each other kicked up a notch after the election of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad in the early 2000s. Iran has been engaged in various proxy wars, most recently in Syria, where Iran backs the Assad regime and where Israel regularly carries out strikes. Israel has tried to derail Iran's burgeoning nuclear weapons program by assassinating a handful of top Iranian scientists. Israel is particularly keen on dismantling groups that are part of Iran's so-called Axis of Resistance. That's an informal political and military alliance that reportedly includes the Iranian-aligned Syrian regime, Hezbollah, Yemen's Houthi movement, and a number of Iraqi groups, as well as other anti-US or anti-Israel militia groups in the region. You see, Israel sees Iran's influence as an existential threat, but analysts think Israel's modus operandi of being on the offensive is unsustainable. Here's what international crisis group's Drew Hilterman told TRT World.
To find a diplomatic solution to the question of the unstable border between Israel and Lebanon, like we have really seen since 2006 until October 7th of last year, where there was a situation of functioning mutual deterrence, or alternatively to decide to remain a militaristic society that will always have to fight for its existence and always has to attack its enemies and only creates more enemies along the way.
For Netanyahu's administration, the strikes are the latest escalation in a long-running shadow war between the two sides. For decades, Israel has pursued Iran, often attempting to rope the US into the fight. This is something former US President Donald Trump has complained about, and it is even reportedly the source of friction between Netanyahu and US President Joe Biden. Tel Aviv has sought permission from Washington multiple times to take action against Tehran, particularly its nuclear weapons development program. Analysts have been speculating that Israel could go after Hezbollah in Lebanon's south. The area borders Israel's northern region, from where some 80,000 people have been evacuated. And it's in northern Israel where there's no advance warning of imminent rockets because of the region's proximity to Hezbollah squads. The Israeli government would like to send those displaced citizens back home. Tel Aviv has made it pretty clear that after its war on Gaza ends, it wants to clear its northern borders with Lebanon to allow for just that.
There is no question that Israel, first of all, feels threatened by Hezbollah in Lebanon and may decide to take preemptive action. And secondly, it is it is highly intolerant of the notion that tens of thousands of Israeli citizens are not able to live in their homes near the border with Lebanon.
Israel wants Hezbollah forces to retreat behind the Litani River, which runs through Lebanon some 30 kilometers north of the Israeli border. That would fulfill UNSCR 1701, which mandates that the area between the river and the UN Blue Line should be free of armed personnel and their assets, except for Lebanese armed forces and UNIFIL troops. US officials think the operation could begin by the end of the spring, while other analysts give it between 6 to 8 months. In any case, doing so would only be viable for Israel after it is finished with Gaza. Whether it has the capacity for that is a different question. So apart from a potential war with Hezbollah, what is next for the region? Iran's retaliation exposed certain strategic realities, like Jordan and Saudi Arabia assisting Israel fend off Iranian missiles. That may set the stage for what is to come.
I think it's true that what the United States did alongside other Europeans and even with the help of some Arab states was very forceful in saying to Israel, this can be a new strategic position. I had one Arab leader say to me that the continuation and the deepening of these partnerships that we saw manifest on Saturday night really depend on Israeli restraint.
On the other hand, Iran seems pretty reluctant to go to direct war with Israel. A few hours after it struck Israel, Tehran released a statement saying the matter can be deemed concluded. In fact, experts say Iran's retaliatory modus operandi in the region has always been to back proxy groups. Speaking of experts, they think Iran's retaliation was anything from theatrical to calculated. However, while Israel's response to Iran's attack was limited, the situation always risks spiraling out of hand in the Middle East.